So Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, is a sequel where, you know, how do I put this? Well, when I first watched the first Den of Thieves film, I thought it was okay. I didn't really dig as much on the characters, but I did admire the intricacies that it put into this heist and the detail that it put into its action sequences. So the original Den of Thieves was very much a film where I was a fan of the technicalities more than I was of like the characters and the story. I found it kind of like very very routine for like cops and robbers type stuff, which is kind of just like middle of the road thriller, but the action and the heist aspects I really loved. And with Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, I'm a little bit conflicted because there is more character here. But it's not expanded as much as it could be, and there is still more intricacy and complexity to this heist that's pulled off, but the action does still leave a lot more to be desired. So there's definitely more ambition, I think, within Pantera to be better than Den of Thieves 1, but I was so frustrated with this film because like it had all these moments and it never quite built up to something more than just being like a standard thriller. So like I was very much on the fence, but it was just such a frustrating film. So like the whole deal here is that you have the two main characters here returning of Gerard Butler as Nicholas O'Brien and O'Shea Jackson Jr. as Donnie Wilson, who is back as a criminal in another gang for a big heist. Now, the two of them actually end up working together, which I think is kind of like a good dynamic here. So like Nick goes undercover and realizes that maybe I should go with these guys because he feels like he's going to get more out of the criminal world than he would by working with law enforcement. And Donnie is just trying to clear his name because he's gotten into some big trouble with some Italian mobsters and needs this heist to go off. So they both have ulterior motives, but for getting the job done of trying to swipe this jewel from like this impenetrable safe. That is ultimately what brings them together. So you have a good foundation set up here for exploring these characters. And to the film's credit, there are some good scenes between them. In particular, I liked the setup for like this one scene where like Nick and Donnie, they're at first they're partying with their heist friends, but then they take off for a midnight snack. And at that point, they start revealing more about their history and their character, and they're just hanging out with each other. And that's that was probably my favorite scene in the film, but it's not really a great scene. It feels like, Donnie's revealing his past and then Nick reveals his past, but it just feels like they're kind of like passively going into their backstories here rather than just hanging out and connecting, which is what that scene was built for. So you have all these scenes that are built up like that, which they could be great, and there are a few good moments between them, but somehow the character chemistry never takes off in this film. It feels like there are so many moments that start and then just stop too quickly. Like at one point, the leader of this new heist operation in Europe is Giovanna, played by Even Ahmad. And I thought she had an interesting look, and I loved her like the intricate way she assembles this heist. And it felt like there might be some romantic tension between Nick and Giovanna here, and like they do build it up to like have a scene where it feels like they're getting a little bit more close and sexual with each other. And then it's immediately shot down by like one of like the jealous heist members. And it's like, okay, is more going to be built up with this? And it's like, no, it's not really. And I thought like, that there might be more moments for Donnie, because like I really admire how O'Shea Jackson actually, because the heist taking place in France, he actually does a pretty good job speaking some French here, where I was kind of curious to see how much more he would kind of like blend in and try to like, work his way around this heist. But unfortunately, we didn't get too many moments like that. The only moments that I feel like really do pay off here are just the scenes of the heist, because they've planned this out to a very intricate nature. They plan it out during a football match. They plan to go in when the cameras are switching at just the right moment, when they're switching out the guards, and they have to like time it just perfectly, and just There was some admiration there with just like how effectively it's set up here. Like there are a few hiccups here and there, and Nick worries about whether or not he's going to have to kill someone in line of duty when he really doesn't want to because he's working undercover. And yeah, the heist itself is actually pretty good. It's on just like an exciting, thrilling level. It's fun to watch. But then after that, we get this car chase where there is like a shootout between these cars, and they're going uphill. They're driving up a mountain. They're shooting at each other, and cars are like falling off the cliff. And the staging, like the setup to that, like the way I'm making it sound here, it sounds like really cool and fast paced, and a lot of like high octane action here. But unfortunately, it never quite hit for me. Like there are some nice shots here and there, but like almost like it almost feels like they're trying too hard to preserve just the right shots here. Like at one point, there's a scene where like a car gets shot up and goes over a cliff. And rather than getting a little bit more of like a close-up, or we get to see the car topple over, or, follow it along the road, we get like a long shot from a distance where we just kind of like watch the car just go over. And it's like, it's very underwhelming, especially after like those intense like shootouts that they have here and there, where it's just like, there's so many hills and valleys with that action scene where, compared to like the shootout in the first film where they were running through traffic and going through alleyways and just taking cover, and people are getting shot up and running and dashing, in between buildings and stuff like that. That was incredibly shot. I love the sound design of that. I love how exciting it was. So, comparing like that to this car chase, I prefer the first film much more on that action angle. And the whole story itself just feels like it's setting up for another series of films here. The way it just kind of has like, these characters, they get caught, but they're not really caught. It's just kind of like one of those like, oh, I'll get you next time, you criminals. And it feels like a lot of setup here and not much of a payoff for the characters themselves. It just feels like the heist itself, it was the highlight here, and all the moments of character drama that are set up, which I'm not faulting, writer-director Christian Gustad for, he returned from the first film here. I'm not faulting him for trying to take these big swings here. I just think, if he strikes out, I got to admit it. And there are a lot of moments with this character drama where it never quite lived up to building up the chemistry, especially between the two leads. There are some moments between the other heist members where they do kind of connect a little bit over different types of music, which I thought was cute. I thought, okay, that's a nice scene. I wish we got more of those scenes, because that would have made me, care about this group a little bit more, outside of, just them wanting to get the money and wanting to, clear their names and just, find some safety. And it felt like there should be something more there. It felt like there should be a grander thematic connection between Nick and Donnie, where they should be able to see eye to eye more than just this heist itself. But it almost feels like the film never quite takes off with that relationship. It feels like it's just going to be built up in the third film, which I don't know if they'll make. I mean, if they do, I would be curious to see it, because I like the effort that was put in to making me care more about Butler and Jackson in this type of film. It's just unfortunate that I didn't care as much for them here, because there's never really a moment for that character chemistry to take off. Like when they're not talking about their woes and their, where they came from, they spend all their time talking about the heist and the operation and interrogating people for information and, just finding a way inside to the vault, and just focusing so much on the job that it never really gives room for that character chemistry to bubble up the way that, in a typical heist film, you would care about these types of characters. But because this operation has to proceed so smoothly, it never really feels like it becomes more of a human story. It's almost like, it felt more like a video game where, it's more about, just clearing the mission and just choosing the most intelligent people for the job and, correcting any faults that might happen. And that mostly happens throughout the film, where it's just, a heist going off pretty damn well. Without many hiccups or, character flaws. But at the same time, it's just like, those flaws would actually make the heist more interesting. And so the end result here is a heist that looks nice and plays nice, but you don't really care as much about the characters trying to get out of this situation. So I was very much on the fence. I do admire the assembly here. I love the intricacy, but the action was a bit underwhelming, and the character moments just never took off. That Pantera ends up being, a Den of Thieves sequel that takes some risks, but unfortunately they don't quite pay off as well as the heist itself.